Welcome to the Agent of Wealth podcast with Marc Bautis from Bautis Financial. In this podcast, Marc helps guide you towards financial freedom, ensure you never run out of money, and create a balance in life that prioritizes what is most important to you. Join us for this journey as Marc draws from years of expertise and guest experts to solve the multiple wealth building challenges involved in your financial life.
Welcome back to the Agent of Wealth. This is your host, Marc Bautis. On today's show, we brought on a special guest, Michelle Seiler Tucker. Michelle is the founder and CEO of Seiler Tucker Incorporated. Michelle has sold over 500 businesses to date and currently owns and operates several successful businesses. Michelle holds the following professional designations and certifications: the Merger and Acquisition Mastery Intermediary, Certified Senior Business Analyst. She's also a best-selling author and a panelist for Mergers and Acquisition Source. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marc. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, and I think you also have your own podcast as well.
I do. It's called Exit Rich.
Awesome. So we're doing a series for business owners, how they can increase their business value, prepare for an exit. And I think so many businesses owners don't know how to tap the value of their business. So I'm really excited about today's topic.
Me too.
How do we get started? I know, just from myself being a financial advisor, working with a lot of business owners, some have been in business for 20, 30 years. Some are relatively new within the past 5 years, but I think it all comes down to, I think they're great at running their business, but they don't know, in terms of like financial planning and what should they do with their business. Some people say, yeah, let's include it in a retirement plan. Some people say, no, I don't even want to include this. And they might be sitting on a multi-million-dollar business. What's the first step someone takes to really truly figure out, one, what their business is worth, and then how do they put a plan together at some point to, exit that business?
Yep. Happy to answer all of that. So first and foremost, I think it's important to know the statistics. Steve Forbes, who endorsed Exit Rich, says 80% of businesses will never sell. 8 out of 10 businesses on the market will not sell. Those are pretty startling statistics, especially if you're trying to sell your business. Yeah. So you don't want to end up in the 80%. The number one reason why businesses don't sell is because business owners never think about their exit. They never think about selling their business until a catastrophic event has occurred, internal or external. Internal could be health issues, partners dispute, divorce, death. And external is this pandemic we've been in for the last year and a half. So the worst time to sell your business is when you're going through a catastrophe, because the business is doing bad and it's trending downward. So you'll never be able to maximize value. The best time to sell the business is when the business is doing well. So what I do is I work with all my clients to help them plan what I call the ST-GPS exit model that we talk about in my book, Exit Rich. And the first step is, Marc, when you want to drive somewhere, what do? You pull out your phone, you go to Google Maps, and you plug in the
address, of where I'm going.
The address, the destination. What happens if you don't plug anything in?
It's not going to be able to tell you it's not going to be able to get you there.
It's not going to get you there. Same thing with your business. Business owners don't plan to fail. They fail to plan. So if they don't plug in that destination, if they don't know their end game, if they don't know their desired sales price, they're not going to get there. Unfortunately, many business owners end up exiting poor. So I tell my clients, like Stephen Covey says, start with the end in mind. Pick a number. Let's say you want to sell your business, just pick a number. Say $20 million. You might hit it. You might not hit it. You can always adjust your sales along the way. The second step in the GPS exit model is the GPS exit model needs to know where you're starting from. What is your current location? What is your current business evaluation? Now, most business owners have never had their business evaluated. They don't think about getting an evaluation until they want to sell their business. And then they're shocked that their company's worth $100,000 and not $20 million. So you really need to get your business evaluated on an annual basis. It's shocking to me because we go to the doctor once a year to get an annual physical checkup. We want to make sure our heart's still ticking and we're still kicking. We drive our car to the mechanic once a year to get an annual tune-up. But we take our most valuable asset, which is our business, and we don't get an annual valuation checkup. That's financial suicide, because there's events that increase valuation and events that decrease valuation. So you always want to know what your business is worth every year. So let's say you want to sell for $20 million. You're currently worth $5 million. The next thing that the model needs to know is time frame. Let's say you want to do this in 10 years. Then the GPS model needs to know, well, who are your buyers going to be? Notice I said buyers, not buyer, because I have clients that call me all the time and say, Michelle, I just need you to represent me with this one buyer. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do it, because that buyer is going to fall apart in due diligence, and we don't have any backup buyers. So when I'm working with my clients, I also, when they're under an LOI, I always take backup offers, because I know that deal could fall apart. So you want to make sure you have buyers, not buyer, because you also can't maximize value by creating a bidding war if you only have one buyer. So you need to create competition. So there's 5 types of buyers, and you need to know all 5. First-time buyers are 90% of buyers. They buy small businesses, coffee shops, restaurants, dry cleaners. Turnaround specialists is the second type of buyer. They buy distressed assets. So they don't buy $20 million companies. Then you have private equity groups, PEGs. They buy 2 ways based upon platforms and add-ons. Platform is, let's say they want to get into food manufacturing. They've never been into food manufacturing. They won't even look at your company unless you have at least $3 million in EBITDA. EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. So if they want to do an add-on and get a seasoning company or something, in that food manufacturing space, they'll buy it and consider it for less than $1 million in EBITDA. But for platforms, they have to be $3 million in EBITDA and up. And then the 4th type of buyers, strategics and competitors, they typically pay the most for your business, because they're buying synergies that can catapult their current business to the next level. They're taking advantage of economies of scale, which decrease overhead. Plus, they're looking at the infrastructure to see what they can cut in the infrastructure in which to increase EBITDA from day one of buying the business. The last type of buyer is the serial entrepreneur, sophisticated buyer that's industry agnostic, and they chase cash flow.
Is there any reason to target one buyer versus the other? Or
no, I would target all 3. I would target PEGs, strategics, and sophisticateds. Now, sophisticateds, a lot of them have a cap. They might not go over $3 million or $4 million or $5 million in EBITDA, but I would definitely target private equity groups, strategics / competitors.
So let's say, you mentioned getting that evaluation done every year and having that, and starting that GPS program. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess you're recommending someone does that even if they don't have the intention to sell, today, sell next year, as just the earlier, like almost anything, the earlier you start something, the better chance you'll have of improvement towards that end goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you're trying to sell for $20 million, and if you don't get a valuation checkup every year, how do you know where you are? How do you know how close you are? The other question is, who should you use for these valuations? I wouldn't use your local CPA because they don't really do valuations. So I would align with a mergers and acquisitions, someone like us, because when we do valuations, we're not just telling you what your business is worth today. We're also doing 5-year projections, tell you what we think you're going to do in the next 5 years. And we also get the business pre-qualified. Plus, we also look at the 6 cylinders, the 6 Ps, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And we want to, there's 6 different methods that we use when we evaluate a business. And one of them is evaluating your synergies, evaluating if you're running on all 6 Ps. So when we're doing annual evaluation checkup for our clients, we're also giving them evaluation on those 6 cylinders, how they're looking for each cylinder and how that drives value.
I see the same thing you do. As businesses just don't get these annual valuations, even if they get them at all. What are some of the reasons why they don't?
Because they got their head in the weeds, right, and they're busy working in their business and not on their business, so they're not thinking about it. And that's the biggest reason. They just get busy and they're not thinking about it. They got their heads, their head in the weeds. So you need to get out of the weeds, work on your business, not in your business, but they're just not thinking about it. And it's really imperative. Because even if you say, well, I don't want to sell for 5 or 6 years, you still want to build a sustainable business. You still want to be able to scale it. You want it to be able to operate without you, right?
Sure.
So you really need an annual checkup, not only on what is your business worth today, but how are you strengthening those 6 Ps that you were weak on before, and how close are you getting to your valuation? A lot of times we'll do a valuation for our clients and they want to sell their business, but when the valuation comes back, they're like, no, I don't want to sell right now. I can't afford to sell for that. Or this is my best year ever. I want you to evaluate it at the end of this year. Mm-hmm. And so we say, okay, so we'll reevaluate the business and tell them where they are and tell them if they're closer to getting the number they want. Because here's the deal, Mark. Business owners come to me and say, hey, I want $10 million for my company. Their EBIT is 100,000.
Right.
So a lot of business owners have unrealistic expectations because they're basing their number on what they need to retire, what they need to put 5 girls through college and pay for 5 weddings, what they need to start or buy another business. And buyers don't care about what you need. Buyers care about what the value is to them.
So let's say they get that first valuation. I guess that forms sort of that baseline or that benchmark. Mm-hmm. And then is the next step to focus on that you help them focus on those 6 Ps? Can we go a little bit into what those 6 Ps are and what the business owner can think about with those?
So we have different programs. One program is they just get an evaluation checkup evaluation, and then we do an annual evaluation checkup for them every year, telling them, where they are with the 6 Ps. We have another program where they're talking to us monthly, and we're working with them monthly on eliminating their bottlenecks and strengthening their weakest Ps to get them closer to their sales price.
So it's almost like a coach. You're basically working as a business coach and them helping them.
So, I don't like the word coach, but yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like a mentorship program where we're helping them tweak their business and build their synergies so they can get closer to their desired sales price.
And then they do the annual reevaluation, and then you can kind of, you have a metric now where you can compare and see, yes, right, we're on the right path, or no, we may need to do some other kind of corrective action to get.
And we also look at the overhead and what they should be decreasing. A lot of business owners don't look at the overhead. Until COVID happened, a lot of them never looked at their overhead. Right. And then when COVID happened, I started looking at the overhead and going, oh my gosh, I should cut this and this and this. Obviously the one thing you should never cut is marketing, but there are things in your overhead that you can decrease in which to increase EBITDA, because you're going to get paid a multiple of EBITDA, not a multiple of gross revenues, unless you're in a SaaS business.
Right. That's going to be my next question is, what are the difference between industries? I'm sure there is a big difference depending on what sector or industry you're in terms of how your business is valued and how easy it is to sell it.
There is. There's different comps for different industries. So the approaches that we use to do evaluation is we look at the market approach. So that's market comps, what's going on right now in the market. What are other manufacturing businesses selling for? What are other healthcare staffing companies selling for? Then we pull what we call solds that have actually sold and what they sold for. And then we pull industry standards. And so we look at those 3 things, plus we do discounted cash, plus there's a bunch of other stuff we do, but it's really based upon 6 different things. But every industry has a different multiple, depending upon that industry. And then what really drives multiple are the 6 Ps, are the synergies that you're building.
Yeah. Do you see business owners making the same mistakes?
Absolutely, 1,000%.
What are some of the mistakes you see?
Very seldom do I see somebody and I go, oh my gosh, that's a brand new mistake that nobody made. I do have one mistake that nobody made, and it cost a guy to go to bankruptcy court. So the biggest mistake I see business owners make, and the reason why 70% of businesses are going out of business, is because of lack of aim. AIM. Business owners stop innovating and marketing. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that business owners make, is that they get married to their concept and they don't change anything. Toys R Us did nothing new in 75 years. Blockbuster saw the writing on the wall when Netflix had the opportunity to purchase Netflix, sat back, did nothing, and ended up out of business. So lack of innovation and marketing is what will put a business owner out of business very quickly.
So it's basically cyclical, right? They go on this upward trajectory. They think everything's great. Mm-hmm. Everything's going to be fine forever. All of a sudden it starts going downward. And then by the time they say, okay, maybe it's time to get out, it's hit a plateau.
It absolutely is. And the problem is they stop asking their clients, what do you need? What do you want? How can I make it easier for you to do business with me? Whoever makes it easiest for the consumer to purchase products and services is the company that's winning. Amazon's winning because you can practically buy anything. You can practically buy a horse on Amazon and have it delivered in 2 days. So you got to go back to the bases and ask your clients, what do you need? What do you want? How can I make it easier for you to do business? Really listen to them, because if you don't, somebody else will.
Yeah.
So the other mistake that they made, and I'm going to kind of weave this into the 6 Ps real quick, is one of the biggest mistakes that they make is a lot of business owners have created a glorified job that they go to work at every day versus a business that actually works for them. So they're working in the business instead of on the business. Huge mistake. Business owners have to start really hiring their strengths. Focus on their strengths, hiring their weaknesses. The first P that we like to talk about in the infrastructure in Exit Rich is people. Business owners have to let go of control in which to grow. Focus on their strengths, hire their weaknesses, put the right people in the right seats, and ask the who question. Who opens the door? Who handles customer service, marketing, legal, accounting? Who handles manufacturing, logistics, transportation, environmental? The clue is that you should never be next to the who. The number two reason that businesses are not sellable is because the business is 1,000% dependent upon the owner.
Right.
We just had a dentist come to us, been in business for 50 years. He has 3 dental hygienists. They're his daughters. And I said, look, I can sell your business, but I'm not going to be able to maximize value. And the purchase price is going to have contingencies tied to you and your daughter staying on for 2 to 3 years. He goes, well, honey, we're not staying. I said, well, then, honey, you're not selling. Because when you leave, the patients leave. So you really got to get out of working in the business. I can't stress that enough. And grow the people to grow your business for you. So your business is not dependent upon you. The second P, where business owners make a lot of mistakes, and this goes back to innovation, is whatever they started in, they haven't innovated and they haven't changed, like Blockbuster, like Toys R Us. And you have to ask yourself, is my product, my industry, my service on the way up or on the way out? Is it thriving or dying? To have an Amazon, I'm in my prime. If you have an Amazon and you're in your prime, you should be selling right now. Or do you have a Blockbuster and you're about to go bust? And then there's 3 questions, Mark, that I tell all my business owners they should ask themselves. Amazon did this back in the 90s. Ask yourself, what business are you in? Amazon said, hey, we're in the book selling business. We fulfill book orders. And then number 2, what do you do better than everyone else? What's your core competency? What's your USP, your unique selling proposition? Amazon said, we do fulfillment better than anyone else. And then the third obvious question is, what business should I be in? And Amazon said, we should be in a fulfillment business, fulfilling products for everybody, not just books. And those 3 questions transformed Amazon from a small bookseller to a multi-billion-dollar worldwide conglomerate that they are today. Products is huge. And here's the other big mistake the business owners make. They have one profit center, Mark. One profit center. One restaurant. No e-commerce business or no other ways to generate revenue. You got to have multiple congruent revenue centers. The third P is processes. I can't even begin to tell you how many times a business owner has come to me and said, hey, I need a process for that. You need a process before you just suffer that catastrophic event. Right. Like, for instance, we're selling a manufacturing company. An employee lost a limb on the manufacturing floor. So the seller's getting sued by everybody. Then he's going to end up in bankruptcy court. And he said, Michelle, I need a process for that, for health and safety on the manufacturing floor. And I'm like, you're a little late. You needed that beforehand, So you really need to design your processes from the beginning. They are ongoing. So keep your policy and procedure manuals open and add policy and procedures to it, as you go. And make sure you design your processes around your customer experience, not your own agenda.
Right.
So that's really important, because if you want to create, you really want to create wow experiences for your clients and create raving fans. So they tell everybody else to come buy from you. And McDonald's did this. Did you ever watch the movie The Founder, based upon the McDonald brothers?
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah, back in the 50s, remember they said, we want to create a fast food restaurant, a fast food system, and we want to design our processes around the customer experience. We want our customers to experience great tasting food that's hot fast. And they went out to the empty tennis courts, took the chalk, drew it all out. They were out there for 9 hours until they figured it out. But those processes are why you can eat at McDonald's anywhere in the world and get the same experience. Yeah. So you got to design your processes with the customer experience in mind. They can also fire and hire somebody within 30 minutes and have somebody working the drive-through or the front counter because of their SOP checklist. So you want to, Burger King or McDonald's, your business, you want to design it with the customer experience in mind. Processes must be productive, efficient, well documented. You need those PP manuals. You need those employee handbooks, non-competes, employment contracts, and SOP checklists.
What about the business that has gone years without doing that? Do they just kind of retroactively go back and one process at a time build it up?
They go back at one process at a time and build it up. They have to, because when you go to sell your business, the first thing they're going to look at in due diligence, one of the first things other than financials, is your policy procedure manuals, your SOP checklist. You really have to have those. And if you don't have them, you're not running your business efficiently. You're probably wasting, you've probably got a tremendous amount of waste, and you probably got high overhead. Processes will make or break your company. Processes are the difference between decreasing or increasing your overhead. So you really have to have those processes. We're still in a company right now for $70 million. They didn't have processes for every department. So now they're going back and building processes for every single department. And Mark, when I said leave it open, you should leave it open, because things change daily. You're like, oh my gosh, we need a process for this. Just go at it, so you're not starting from scratch. These are documents you should keep up with. And then I'll give you a crash course in valuations. So businesses that have under $1 million in EBITDA will typically trade anywhere from 1 to 3, maybe 3.5 if they have a lot of synergies, multiple of EBITDA. The companies that have over $1 million in EBITDA will typically start off at 5 and up, depending upon the synergies and the proprietary assets their company has built. So the fourth P is proprietary. There's lots of mistakes business owners make in proprietary that I'm going to cover for you. First and foremost is branding. The more well-branded you are, the more I can sell your company for, as long as your brand is relevant in the mind of the consumer. Is anybody paying any money for Blockbuster?
Not now. Nope.
Not now. The most valuable brand in the world is?
Apple.
Apple. You're right. $359 billion. That's just a brand. That's not the cash flow, inventory, assets, real estate. That's just a brand alone. So build your brand. Trademarks are huge. Trademark your company name, your podcast, your slogan, anything that's unique to you, products, But here's a mistake the business owners make. They go to GoDaddy, they put in a name, they're like, yes, we got that .com. And then they go to their state and get a local trademark, but they never check the federal database. And I've seen businesses operate for, 5, 10, 15 years, and all of a sudden receive a cease and desist letter in the mail, and they have to stop using that company name. And yes, you can hire an attorney. Yes, you can throw money at it, but you're probably going to lose. And you have to start the rebranding process all over again. So make sure your podcast has a federal trademark. Make sure everything unique. Products too, by the way. We have a company where we're selling that has 12 different unique products. And each product has a federal trademark. And each product is exclusive to that retail chain store. So they have a product in Walmart. They have one in Target. They have one in TJ Maxx. They have one in Marshall's. And strategics will pay more money for that. Patents are big. If you've ever watched Shark Tank, what does Shark say? What do Sharks always ask? Do you have a patent on that? Do you have a patent pending? Offers contingent upon you proving you have the patent. And so we once sold a company for $18 million. It wasn't making that much, but they had 18 patents. And then contracts, very valuable. Manufacturing, distribution, vendor, exclusive contracts, franchisor that has franchisees, client contracts, especially if they have subscription model with recurring revenue. Buyers will pay more money for contracts. Now, here's the mistake business owners make. In the 20 years I've been doing this, thousands of deals later, I've never seen a business owner have the transferability clause in their contract to say this contract is transferable to the new entity. 98% of all sales are asset sales. If the buyer doesn't agree to stock sell, or you can't get your customers to sign consent to transfer, then your deal is going to fall dead in its tracks. And here's the deal. If you got 1,500 contracts, if you have 1,000 contracts, are you going to go to every single one and get a consent to transfer?
Probably not.
No. There was an M&A brokerage firm that sold years ago to a private equity group. Private equity group hired their DD team, due diligence team. Nobody looked at the contracts. They closed on the business. And then they were wondering what was going on with the franchisees because nobody was communicating with them. And franchisees said, oh, well, we don't have to transfer over. We don't have to do business with you because our contracts are non-transferable. Franchisor looked at the contract, threw this huge party, pay for the franchisees and their families, flights, lodging, etc. And guess what? The franchisees didn't like the private equity group. They thought they were arrogant and inexperienced. So none of them transferred over except for one. Within 90 days, they filed bankruptcy and sued their whole legal team.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you have that transferability clause. Databases are big, especially if you're nurturing your database, your clients, and they can be repurposed and retargeted. Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp, and WhatsApp was hemorrhaging, but they had 1 billion users. They had a synergy.
Right.
Celebrity endorsements are big. We have a client that's on Oprah's favorite things, and strategists will pay more money for that. Same thing with radio personalities, because radio personalities and celebrities can only endorse one vertical at a time, one skincare, one diet company, one educational platform. And then what's big for my e-commerce businesses that we sell, any of those top positions for your specific niche on eBay, Wayfair, Amazon, Etsy. These are synergies that strategics will pay a lot more money for.
So they build the database, and then you have the contracts with the clients. And I see that a lot as well, having that non-transferability clause in it. If that's the case, do they go back and rewrite contracts? How do they get around?
What they got to try to do is go back and rewrite contracts. It's doable when you got 10, 15, 20 clients. When you got hundreds upon hundreds or thousands, it's very difficult. Yeah. So there's a lot of work on us to make sure we find a buyer who will do a stock sale if the contracts are not transferable.
Is that similar to how, you log on to a site, you get these, here's our updated terms and conditions, you click OK, and now you just made your contract transferable?
That's one way to do it, yeah. If they don't read it and they're okay with it, that's definitely one way to do it. Yeah, but these are things that you need to be proactive instead of reactive. But if you already have the contracts, it is a good solution. But a lot of companies, if you're trying to do if you're doing a contract with BP or, somebody big like that, you're not just going to email them the terms and conditions and hope that they sign it. They have a whole legal department that has to run through. And then Patreons is a fifth P, and customers make the biggest mistake here too, Mark, because they have customer concentration, not customer diversification. Most businesses follow the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of their clients. So I'll give you a perfect example. We had a client that had customer concentration. It was with BP. 65% of the revenue was tied up in the BP contract. And they could not get BP to sign consent to transfer no matter what they tried. They went over there with flowers. They went over there begged. They went with chocolate. It was a woman, and it's funny because the owner got down on one knee and said, look, I'll marry you, if you'll do this. But anyway, all my buyers were very concerned about customer concentration, because if they lose BP, they lose 65% of their revenue. Yeah. So we have 550 buyers look at this business. We narrowed it down to 12 LOIs, letter of intents, but every single LOI had earnouts or clawbacks or something that was contingent upon keeping that BP contract intact. And if it didn't, if it wasn't, then they would go back and claw back from the sale, or the owner wouldn't get the earnout. And my business owner said, well, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not going to agree to any of that. So luckily I found a strategic that has similar products and services, but have been trying to get in BP for decades and could never get in. So they said, we don't care about customer concentration. We just want to get our foot in the door, because they knew once they got their foot in the door, they would buy their products and services. And it's very hard to get your products in that company. So they said, we're going to outbid everybody else. They offered $15 million for 70% of the company, which was 126% more than the appraised price. That's how we're able to create bidding wars, And then the last P is profits. Everybody's in business to make money. But the reason I put profits last is because lack of profits is never the problem. Lack of profits is never the problem. It's always a symptom of not operating one of the other 6 Ps. So clients come to me and say, Michelle, I have a profit problem. I'm like, no, you have a people problem. No, you have a process problem. If you're operating all 5 Ps, you will be profitable. I can promise you that. Yeah. Now, you asked earlier, how do you find the buyers? It's very difficult for business owners to find the buyers on their own and not breach confidentiality. The number one concern to most business owners when they're trying to sell their business is confidentiality. They don't want their employees to know, because employees get spooked, They think the new owner is going to come in and fire them or be difficult to work for. Clients don't want to hear it. So confidentiality is all of our number one priorities. So it's very hard for them to find the buyers. They don't know the buyers. We have over 28,000 buyers of all 5 types of buyers in our database. We know very quickly who's a strategic, who's a competitor, who's going to be the best to offer us the highest price, who can take advantage of economies of scale, and who can, decrease infrastructure, which decreases operating costs.
Yeah, makes sense. I know you have a book coming out, Exit Rich. What's it about, and how can people get a copy of it?
So Exit Rich is about what we've been talking about. It's about, it's not just about selling your business. So even if you're not thinking about selling your business, you should still pick up your copy, Exit Rich, because Exit Rich is all about planning your exit the right way and determining your end game, what you want to sell your business for. It also has content in there about when's the best time to sell, what's the seller sanity check, and it has exercises to go through. Plus, it's about building the proper infrastructure on the 6 cylinders, on the 6 Ps. And then that's the first half of the book, Mark. The second half is valuations, negotiations, normalizing financials, getting through due diligence, getting the LOIs, getting to the closing table. So the second half of the book is all about that, while the first half of the book is all about mindset, exit strategies, and the 6 Ps. So Steve Forbes endorsed Exit Rich, saying it's a goldmine for entrepreneurs as they leave way too much money on the table when they sell their business. Sharon Lechter is my co-author that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki. She's a New York Times bestselling author, 5 times a CPA and financial literacy expert and the advisor to many presidents. And then Kevin Harrington, the original Shark on Shark Tank, wrote the foreword. So Exit Rich launches June 22nd. You can buy Exit Rich today at exitrichbook.com for $24.79, which is less than Amazon. We will email you the digital download. By the way, we have a case study. We have a pharmaceutical owner that did that. He printed it on ledger paper, and he's using it as a workbook, and he's integrating it into his growth strategy and into his exit plan, and hiring us to sell his business between 30 to 50 million. He says the best book he's ever written. There's tips in there that he's never heard of before. And so we will email you the digital download immediately, so you can use it as a workbook too. We will ship the hardcover to your doorstep to anyone that lives in the United States for no additional shipping. We will give you a lifetime membership into the Exit Rich Book Club, where we have video content, me doing deep dives and strategies and some of these different techniques that we've been talking about here today, plus documents to operate your business and sell your business, sample policy and procedure manuals, org charts, SOP checklists, sample letter intents, purchase agreements, due diligence checklist, closing docs. All of these documents are there for you to review and download. They would cost you thousands upon thousands of dollars if you went to your attorney to recreate. You can use a template. Just remove the name Seiler Tucker. And then we're giving you a 30-day free membership into Club CEOs, which is a mastermind that I started where we do hot seats and Q&As to help business owners build that sustainable, scalable, and sellable business.
Awesome. That sounds great. We'll link to all that in the show notes.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for being on. You packed on a ton of information in a short period of time. So I think business owners will really get a lot out of this. So yeah, thank you again for being on.
Thank you. I like to over-deliver.
All right. And
thank you for having me. And then my main website is seilertucker.com.
Perfect. We'll link to that as well.
All right.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in to today's episode.
Thank you for listening to the Agent of Wealth podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Bautis Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial planning and investment advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investments and financial planning.